ever wished you could beam like gigabits of data across a whole city and without a single cable?
Yeah.
Today, we're diving into that magic.
It's like more exciting than it sounds.
With the Cambium Networks PTP Playbook, it's your like shortcut to understanding point-to-point wireless.
Yeah.
So get ready to impress your friends with all your newfound knowledge.
Right. Choosing the right PTP solution. It's it's like assembling the perfect team, right?
Okay.
You need the right players for capacity, range, and availability.
Okay, so it's a team effort. The playbook really stresses these three factors right up front.
Yeah.
But how do they actually work together, like in the real world?
Okay, so think of it like this. Capacity is how much data you can send at once.
Okay.
It's like having a multi-lane highway.
Uh-huh.
Range is how far your signal can travel.
Okay.
A longer range, that might require stronger signals.
Right.
Or even like relay stations, like pit stops along the way.
Makes sense. And I'm guessing higher capacity over those longer ranges, that gets kind of tricky, right?
Exactly. Higher frequencies, they can carry more data, but they often have shorter ranges.
Okay.
So it's like trying to send a really high resolution video over a walkie-talkie.
Right.
Versus like a fiber optic cable.
Right.
You also need to consider, like, are you sending data both ways equally?
Right.
That's symmetrical.
Okay.
Or is it more one directional?
Right.
It's like security camera footage.
So symmetrical is like a busy two-way street, and then asymmetrical is more like streaming a movie. It's mostly one-way traffic.
Yeah.
Now, what about this availability thing? Is that about Wi-Fi passwords or?
Not quite. Availability is about how much downtime you can afford. So we're talking about systems that are up and running 99.999% of the time.
Wow.
Which translates to only a few minutes of downtime, like per year.
That is serious reliability.
Yeah.
But to even start comparing these systems, I think we need to maybe decode some of the jargon.
Yeah.
Honestly, some of these terms in the key terminology section have me completely lost.
Let's demystify them.
Yeah.
Let's take FDD versus TDD.
Okay.
They sound like rival boy bands, but they're actually about how data travels.
Okay.
So FDD uses two separate lanes for sending and receiving data simultaneously.
Okay.
While TDD uses one lane but alternates direction.
So FDD is like a two-way street, and TDD is like a well-directed single lane. What about aggregate capacity versus one-way capacity?
Yeah.
Is that just marketing jargon?
It's a crucial distinction.
Okay.
Think of aggregate capacity as the total bandwidth of your, internet connection.
Right.
While one-way capacity is like the download speed. It only tells you how fast data flows in one direction.
So if a system boasts 1 gigabit capacity, I need to double check if that's the total or just one way. That's pretty tricky.
Yeah.
And I'm betting licensed versus unlicensed frequency plays a role here too, right?
Absolutely. Imagine a public park versus a private golf course. Unlicensed frequencies, like certain 5 gigahertz bands, they're free to use, but, they can get a little crowded.
Right.
While licensed frequencies, they require permission.
Okay.
But they offer more bandwidth and less interference.
Okay, that's starting to click.
Yeah.
But then there's these terms that sound straight out of a tech thriller.
Yeah.
Space diversity, fade margin, and multipath reflection.
Don't worry, they're not as intimidating as they sound.
Okay, good.
Space diversity is like having backup singers for your data.
Okay.
By using multiple antennas, you increase the chances of your signal, reaching its destination.
Right.
Even if one path is blocked.
So it's all about redundancy and playing the odds. That's pretty clever.
Exactly. Fade margin is like having extra gas in your tank.
Okay.
It's the amount of signal loss the system can handle before it affects performance.
Okay.
And multipath reflection. Well, imagine your data taking a detour through a hall of mirrors. Those reflected signals can arrive at different times and kind of mess things up.
That's why planning is so crucial.
Yes.
I see the playbook is highlighting a tool here called Link Planner. What's the deal with that?
Think of Link Planner as your PTP crystal ball.
Okay.
It's a free tool from Cambium Networks, and it helps you predict how your link will perform based on, the distance, the frequency, and even environmental factors.
Wow.
It even helps you create a shopping list for the equipment that you'll need.
Free and potentially headache saving. I like the sound of that. I also noticed a section on unique features for PTP. What goodies are we talking about here?
This is where Cambium Networks brings out the big guns.
Okay.
Features like DSO or dynamic spectrum optimization are like having a personal assistant for your wireless link.
Okay.
So if it detects interference, it automatically switches to a clearer channel so you don't even notice.
That's amazing. It's like having a self-driving car for your data.
Yeah.
Just navigating around those traffic jams. And then there's multi-band radios. Does that mean my internet connection can time travel?
Not quite time travel, but it's almost as impressive.
Okay.
Multi-band radios are like having a backup plan for your backup plan. Take, for example, a 60 gigahertz, 5 gigahertz radio.
Okay.
60 gigahertz offers those, blazing fast speeds, but with a limited range. If that 60 gigahertz signal hits a snag, it seamlessly switches to the more robust 5 gigahertz connection.
Wow.
So you're always connected.
That's incredible. Talk about peace of mind. But, I can already hear some folks saying, why not just use fiber optic cables? It's the gold standard.
Fiber has its place. But the playbook makes a strong case for PTP wireless, especially in situations where fiber is either too expensive or impractical to deploy.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll unpack why right after the break. Welcome back to our point-to-point wireless adventure. Before the break, we were kind of debating fiber versus wireless.
Right.
So why would anyone choose to beam data through the air when you could send it zipping along, a nice cable?
That's a great question. Imagine trying to build a bridge across a canyon.
Okay.
You could choose sturdy steel beams, or you could opt for a helicopter.
Okay.
Fiber is like those beams.
Okay.
It's reliable, but it's also really expensive, time-consuming to put in place.
Right.
PTP wireless is like that helicopter.
Okay.
It's faster, more agile, and often much more cost-effective, especially in challenging terrain.
So PTP is the way to go when you need speed, flexibility, and maybe a bit of daring.
Exactly. The playbook really highlights this by pointing out that PTP really shines when it comes to deployment speed.
Okay.
Laying fiber can take, months, even years for large projects.
Right.
While a PTP link can be up and running in a matter of, days or even hours.
That's a big difference.
Yeah.
So that means you start seeing a return on your investment much, much sooner.
Exactly.
Time is money, as they say.
Right.
And what about this idea of PTP as a kind of a backup for fiber? That seems like a pretty smart strategy.
It's like having a spare tire in your car.
Right.
You hope you never need it, but you're incredibly grateful when you do.
Right.
So if your fiber line gets cut, a PTP link can kind of seamlessly take over.
Okay.
Ensuring those critical services like hospitals or emergency responders,
Right.
stay connected.
Talk about peace of mind.
Yeah.
Now, I can't resist those distance versus capacity tables any longer.
Yeah.
They seem like the keys to kind of unlocking the perfect PTP solution.
They are incredibly useful.
Okay.
Remember our example from earlier about needing like 300 millips to 1 Gbps over a distance of 5 to 25 kilometers?
Yes.
Yeah. So table 7, that points us to solutions like the PTP 670.
Right. The one with DSO, which acts like a channel hopping pro to avoid all that interference.
Exactly. The table even tells us it can achieve those speeds using a 2-foot antenna.
Wow.
Don't let the size fool you. That little antenna that packs a punch.
Okay, but now I'm picturing like antennas on my roof, like I'm like setting up a satellite TV dish.
Yeah.
How big do these things actually get?
That depends on the distance and frequency you're working with.
Okay.
So higher frequencies, like those that are used for multi-gigabit speeds over long distances, those might require larger antennas to kind of, focus the signal.
Okay.
Think of it like throwing a pebble across a room.
Right.
Versus like hitting a target a mile away.
Right.
You need more power and precision for the longer throw.
So a larger antenna is like a bigger magnifying glass.
Yeah.
Just kind of focusing those data beams.
That's a great way to put it.
Okay.
But before you go, envisioning skyscraper-sized dishes.
Right.
Most PTP antennas are surprisingly compact.
That's good to know. Now, let's say our ambitious listener needs even more speed. What if they're thinking, to heck with gigabits, I want terabits?
Right.
Do the tables have solutions for that?
They do. As you move down the tables, you'll find solutions that are designed for those ultra-high capacities.
Okay.
These often involve multiple radios kind of working together.
Okay.
Or even operating in those higher frequency bands like 60 gigahertz and 80 gigahertz, which offer incredible bandwidth, but, over shorter distances.
So it's like upgrading from a sports car to a supersonic jet. You're going to get where you're going faster, but with some like range limitations.
Exactly. It all comes down to finding that right balance for, your specific needs.
Right.
And these tables help you do just that. They guide you through the options based on your desired capacity and distance.
It's like having a custom tailored data delivery service.
Right.
This is all incredibly fascinating, but we've mostly focused on those higher frequencies. What about situations where those aren't an option?
Sure.
What about when you need a signal that can travel farther or maybe penetrate obstacles like more effectively?
You're right.
What about those?
Sometimes you need that. And that's where those lower frequency bands like 11 gigahertz, 18 gigahertz, and 23 gigahertz come into play.
The ones that sometimes require a bit of government paperwork.
Right.
Why are those lower frequencies better for those trickier scenarios?
Think about sound waves for a moment.
Okay.
A deep bass note that can travel through walls much easier than a high-pitched whistle, right?
Right.
Lower frequency radio waves, they behave very similarly.
Okay.
They have longer wavelengths, which means they don't get absorbed or scattered as easily by obstacles.
So it's like they can navigate around those obstacles more easily, like a seasoned explorer versus someone just trying to, bushwhack through a jungle.
Exactly. That makes them ideal for establishing links in areas with, challenging terrain, dense forests, or other situations where a clear line of sight is really difficult to achieve.
It's like having a team of expert data Sherpas just kind of guiding your information through those challenging environments.
I like that analogy.
Yeah.
But it's important to remember that there are trade-offs with every choice.
Okay.
Lower frequency bands often have less available bandwidth than their, higher frequency counterparts.
So it's that balance again.
Right.
Trading some speed for greater reach and that obstacle penetration. It's all about choosing the right tool for the job.
Precisely. And speaking of choosing the right tool, selecting the equipment is only half the battle.
Right.
The actual deployment process, getting those antennas mounted, aligned, making sure they're actually pointing in the right direction. That's a whole other art form.
Okay, so we've picked our team.
Yes.
Now we need to get them in formation and ready for action. What are some of the key things to consider when it comes to actually deploying a PTP link?
First and foremost, you need a clear line of sight.
Okay.
We're not just talking about what you can see with your eyes,
right,
but what those radio waves can kind of see. Think of it like playing laser tag with your data. Any obstructions in the way, those will weaken or even completely block the signal.
Right. So no hiding your antennas behind the ficus.
Exactly. And even with a clear line of sight, there are other factors that come into play.
Okay.
Trees, especially those with dense foliage, they can absorb the signal.
Right.
Buildings can reflect it, causing interference.
Mm-hmm.
Weather can also kind of wreak havoc, especially rain and fog.
Right.
They can scatter those radio waves.
So it's like navigating a minefield of potential signal blockers.
In a way, it is. That's why meticulous planning and site surveys are essential. You need to consider the terrain, the surrounding environment, even things like seasonal changes in foliage.
Wow.
Or, believe it or not, bird migration patterns.
Wait, are you serious?
Yeah.
Birds can mess with my internet connection.
Large flocks of birds can temporarily disrupt signals, especially at those higher frequencies.
Wow.
It all comes down to, understanding the nuances of your specific location and planning accordingly.
So we've got weather, trees, buildings, even birds to consider.
Right.
Is there anything else that could throw a wrench into our perfectly planned PTP link?
Don't forget about our old nemesis, interference.
All right.
Other wireless signals operating in the same frequency band, those can cause problems.
All right.
Think Wi-Fi networks, Bluetooth devices, even microwave ovens.
Oh, wow.
They all emit radio waves that could potentially, disrupt your PTP connection.
It's like trying to have a conversation at a crowded party.
Yeah.
Everyone's vying for attention, and your data is just trying to be heard above all the noise.
Precisely. That's why careful frequency planning is really crucial. You need to choose the least congested frequencies for your area, and potentially explore techniques like shielding to kind of minimize interference from particularly strong sources.
So it's like a game of strategic wireless chess, just carefully positioning your pieces to outmaneuver those interfering signals.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've chosen our equipment, we've scouted the terrain, dodged the interference.
Right.
What's next? So it sounds like we've covered the tactical maneuvers of PTP deployment, selecting the right equipment, scouting the terrain and outsmarting all those interfering signals.
Yeah.
What's the next move in this wireless war room?
Now it's time for the meticulous calculations.
Okay.
Remember those environmental factors we talked about? Rain, fog, trees, even birds.
Right.
They all affect the signal strength, right?
Uh-huh.
And we need to account for those losses to ensure a reliable connection.
Oh.
That's where the link budget comes in.
Link budget sounds a bit intimidating.
Yeah, a little bit.
Is this where we break out the spreadsheets and the calculator?
Think of it like planning a road trip.
Yeah.
You wouldn't just start driving without knowing how much gas you have, how far you're going, or whether there are gas stations along the way.
Right.
A link budget does the same thing for your data.
Okay.
It calculates how strong the signal is when it leaves the transmitter, how much strength it loses as it travels through the air.
Okay.
And how much signal strength you need at the receiver for a strong, stable connection.
So it's about making sure our data has enough fuel to reach its destination.
Exactly.
Even with those environmental detours and roadblocks.
Precisely. We need to factor in everything.
Okay.
The transmit power of the equipment, the gain of the antennas, the distance between those 2 points, and all of those environmental factors that can sap the signal strength.
It's about making sure that your data arrives at its destination intact without any dropouts or interruptions.
Okay, I'm starting to see how crucial a well-calculated link budget is.
Yeah.
For a successful PTP deployment.
Absolutely.
But I have to ask, what about those mechanical aspects? We've talked about antennas.
Yeah.
But what about mounting them, securing them, making sure they're actually pointing in the right direction?
You've hit on another really critical aspect.
Okay.
Imagine those antennas as the drummers in a marching band.
Okay.
They need to be perfectly synchronized.
Right.
For the music to sound right.
Right.
Even a slight misalignment can really impact performance.
Wow.
So you need sturdy mounts that can withstand, wind and weather.
Right.
Precise alignment procedures to make sure those signals are hitting their target.
And proper grounding and lightning protection. You don't want a stray bolt frying your expensive equipment.
Like a delicate dance between physics, engineering, and maybe even a little bit of luck.
There's definitely an element of that, but with careful planning, attention to detail, and the right expertise, you can overcome those challenges.
Yeah.
And create a PTP link that's both robust and reliable.
This has been an incredible journey so far.
It has.
We've gone from understanding the very basics of point-to-point wireless to decoding all the jargon, exploring those real-world use cases, and even diving into the nitty-gritty of deployment.
A lot.
As we wrap up our deep dive here, what are the key takeaways you want our listeners to kind of walk away with?
First and foremost, remember that PTP wireless is a really powerful tool for bridging the connectivity gap.
Right.
Especially in those situations where fiber is either too expensive or impractical to deploy.
Right. It's about bringing high-speed internet to those remote offices, connecting those security cameras.
Exactly.
Even beaming internet to that concert in the park.
Absolutely. And remember, choosing the right PTP solution, it isn't one size fits all. It's about finding that perfect balance between capacity, range, availability, and of course budget. Right. To meet your specific needs.
It's like assembling the perfect toolkit for your connectivity needs.
Precisely. And just as importantly, never underestimate the value of careful planning. Right. From site surveys and link budgets to antenna alignment and interference mitigation, meticulous planning. It's really crucial for a successful PTP deployment.
Think of it like building a house.
Yes.
You wouldn't just start laying bricks without a blueprint.
Exactly. A well-designed and properly deployed PTP link, that can provide years of really reliable high-speed connectivity,
Right.
bridging that digital divide and opening up a world of possibilities.
This deep dive into the world of PTP wireless has been it's been eye-opening, to say the least. We've learned a ton, and we hope you have too.
Absolutely.
And remember, if you're considering deploying a PTP link for your business, your community, whatever it may be,
Right.
don't be afraid to seek out that expert advice. Tools like Cambium Networks Link Planner and their team of experienced engineers, they can really help guide you through the whole process.
Absolutely.
And ensure that your deployment is a success.
Definitely.
Because sometimes even the most adventurous explorers can benefit from a seasoned guide.
That's right.
That's all the time we have for today's deep dive. We hope you've enjoyed this journey into the world of point-to-point wireless. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep those connections strong.